All right, kids, even if you can't say his name, you will know it.
The hope of a skinny kid with a funny name who believes that America has a place for him too.
That was supposed to be a clip of Vivek Ramaswamy. We're going to talk about him today. I mean, when he introduced himself as a participant, performer really, during the Republican primary debate last week, he pretty much just bit that Obama quote. Now, as a 2024 presidential candidate, Vivek doesn't stand a chance. There ain't no way he will become the grand old party's nominee. Donald Trump got that locked down, even if he gets locked up. However, after the debate that 45 didn't attend and where the word woke was only used once, Ramaswamy not only declared himself the winner, but Fox viewers did too. Since then, the rest of America is learning what Ohio already knows. See, Vivek Ramaswamy is a first-generation American entrepreneur, investor, and New York Times bestselling author. He graduated summa cum laude from Harvard and received his law degree from Yale while working as a hedge fund partner. And he was raised in Cincinnati, graduated valedictorian from Xavier High School, and recently moved himself and his family to Franklin County near Columbus, the city that I was born in and raised me. And he's around my age, so I'll be seeing him for the next few decades. With that said, there are 10 things I hate about him, at least. We'll focus on Vivek's 10 truths of the 2024 campaign. They're kind of like his tenants. He refers to them as an undeniable reality, even though during the debate he said the US Constitution is the greatest guarantor of freedom, before claiming that it's what won us the American Revolution, which that's not how time works. And look, we already took care of one truth, 9 more to go. As you'll see, while the US is figuring out who Vivek is, I'm going to show you who he isn't. Number 1, God is real. Well, you should know that Vivek is the son of Indian immigrants and a practicing Hindu. In fact, him and his wife grew up practicing Hindu, and the couple is now raising their 2 toddlers in the faith. And let it be known, him and his family should be free to worship as many gods as they want, and they do. It's not like this is something he hides, as he often quotes passages from the Bible. He can very well appreciate scripture as wisdom. However, we've seen evangelicals, who mostly vote Republican, accuse the president of being Muslim due to his name. We'll see how they deal with Vivek not being a Christian. When people called him Obama 2.0, nobody asked to see his birth certificate, so he's got that going for him. But this first truth is an example of how Vivek is using messaging and choice wording strategically, and doesn't necessarily indicate what he does and does not believe, or who he is and isn't. Number 2, there are 2 genders. We can't refer to anything that Vivek said during the GOP primary debate about this topic because it never came up. Probably because Republicans know that attacking trans people and drag queens is a losing issue. Weird how they can turn it on and off like that, like the lights in the bathrooms that they want to keep the queer community out of. Anyways, we have seen and heard Vivek address what he calls the tyranny of the minority.
I don't think that somebody who's religious should be forced to officiate a wedding that they disagree with. I don't think somebody who is a woman who's worked really hard for her achievements should be forced to compete against a biological man in a swim competition. I don't think that somebody who's a woman that respects her bodily autonomy and dignity should be forced to change clothes in a locker room with a man. That's not freedom, that's oppression.
There are approximately 400,000 athletes participating in 7-12 athletics in the state of Ohio, according to the Ohio High School Athletic Association. 6 girls. That is a small percentage of that population. Only 11 transgender females have been approved to play in the last 6 years. None of them dominated their sports because that rarely, barely happens. A student athlete was quoted as saying, "It does feel like there's a target on my back and that they are using me and other trans female athletes as political pawns." She's right. The OHSAA has already addressed transgender athletes to some extent. The current rules state that in order for a transgender female to compete in girls' sports, they have to undergo a year of hormone therapy or prove that they don't have any physical advantages over genetic females of the same age group. Number 3, human flourishing requires fossil fuels. So, in the GOP primary debate, a student from Catholic University of America asks, young people's number 1 issue is climate change. How would you, as president of the United States and leader of the Republican Party, calm their fears that the Republican Party doesn't care about climate change? Vivek said the climate change agenda is a hoax. And if you didn't pick up on my verbal italics there, the emphasis was placed on the word agenda. Vivek believes that humans have an impact on the environment. He has said as much at some point in the past, but he claims that most people are dying from climate change policies than there are of actual climate change. Again, messaging, wording, but also empty platitudes, no data. Whatever the case, he was booed by the crowd and he is going to piss off Gen Z. Speaking of, Ramaswamy has said multiple times that he wants to increase the legal voting age from 18 to 25, pairing that with a civics test, like immigrants have to take, and or military service or simply civic duties in order to gain what he calls civic privileges. But
hey Vivek, raising the voting age, does this have anything to do with young people leaning more progressive? Hey Vivek, are you familiar with previous US laws requiring taking a test in order to vote? Hey Vivek, if somebody can't pass the civics test when they're 25 and then they turn 26, can they vote? Hey Vivek, if somebody's 45 and they decide to take the civics test for fun but fail the test, can they still vote? Hey Vivek, if so, why? Hey Vivek, do you think it's going to be popular to raise the voting age by 7 years? Hey Vivek, you want to raise the voting age, but you're just 3 years older than the lower limit to be president, and you want to be president? Hey Vivek, get fucked.
Also, based on what we know about education and voting blocks, the South votes Republican, while red states are the least educated in the US. Based on Vivek's plan, liberal and left-leaning people would not only be more likely to pass a civics test, they'd be more likely to vote. And not for him. A CEO and the child of immigrants wanting to essentially get rid of birthright citizenship is nasty business. I'm sure Vivek knows this. Then again, with takes like this, he might not be able to pass his own test. Number 4, reverse racism is racism. This tenet, more than the others, shows us who Ramaswamy is talking to, speaking for, and represents. More Republicans see racism as a problem for white people than for black people. This article from The Atlantic says that in 8th grade, Ramaswamy was pushed down a flight of stairs at his public school. The article doesn't mention the race of the people who did this, but though he underwent hip surgery afterward, he was careful not to portray himself as a victim. Instead, he described the event as a catalyst for his arrival at St. Xavier. The author asks him about coming of age in a post-9/11 world, when many ignorant Americans assumed that anyone with brown skin might be a terrorist. Vivek detailed the experience of being singled out and questioned while flying to Israel. That unique sensation of being the last passenger permitted to board. Quote, I didn't chafe at that though, because honestly, in some ways, it was data-driven, he said. When asked if he considered the action itself to be racist, Vivek said no. I think racism has to involve some level of animus, actually. I have experienced racism, to be clear, but I don't think it entails animus, so it doesn't qualify as racism, to me. So yes, Vivek is more than aware that there is racism in America and that he has experienced it himself, but he doesn't believe in systemic racism. Even with that, something animus. No definition for racism, systemic or otherwise, is going to stress intention. Racism is like car accidents. There's damage to be reckoned with, and someone is cited to be at fault, whether or not they did it on purpose. If the wreck was intentional, though. While speaking with the Independent Women's Forum about his 2 books, Woke Inc. and The Nation of Victims, he described how people can cash in by being victims, claiming, it's why we got into this race of the victimhood Olympics, and I want to make this clear. He did mention black victims, white victims, second-generation Asian American victims, liberal victims, conservative victims. It's victimhood culture everywhere. Although, this is who he used as examples of cashing in off of victimhood.
At the end of the day, it becomes a brand, a cultural currency that you can trade in. And whether it's Meghan Markle, whether it's Kamala Harris in the victimhood politics that effectively got one of the worst candidates in the Democratic primary, her seat as vice president of the United States, it pays to be a victim in today's culture.
This goes along with the don't be a victim about it thing that he does not apply to a man who raised $250 million from his Stop the Steal campaign after claiming 2020 election fraud. With Trump's 4 indictments and 90-ish felony counts, is Vivek demanding for Donald to take responsibility? Or is this a witch hunt from Democrats using the FBI, that Vivek wants to abolish, by the way, and the Department of Justice to imprison political opponents? On the topic of presidential elections and identity politics and merit, are we supposed to be under the impression that 45 of 46 presidents were not elected due to their skin color? Anyways, Vivek stated that he doesn't believe his race will negatively affect his electability in 2024. Maybe he doesn't feel like he needs the black or minority or young person vote. Quote, celebrating our differences, we forgot all the ways that we are the same. Our strength is not our diversity. says the brown person who brown people won't vote for. He knows this. Number 5, an open border is no border. Speaking of brown people. With rhetoric like this, if anyone wonders, does Vivek really stand a chance fighting the Trump machine? The answer is no. And he's not fighting the Trump machine. He's trying to get on it. Or in it. Like J.D. Vance and Josh McDowell before him and Frank LaRose now, Ohio politicians, actually candidates all over the country, are doing whatever it takes to get Trump's endorsement. Despite questionable results, a vote of confidence from 45 gets you a one-way ticket on the Trump train. Again, Vivek Ramaswamy is 38. His chances of becoming president will grow as he gets older and will multiply as an 80-something-year-old Trump gets older. In the meantime, if Vivek can become, say, vice president or a cabinet member in Trump's administration, then he can coast for the next 4 years until the next shot, next opportunity, to capture everything he ever wanted or let it slip. With that in mind, less than a week after the U.S. Capitol was attacked on January 6, 2021, Vivek Ramaswamy tweeted, "What Trump did last week was wrong, downright abhorrent, plain and simple. I've said it before and did so in my piece," referring to this Wall Street Journal opinion piece he wrote. During the debate, Vivek said he wanted to put people back to work by no longer paying people to stay at home. He'll say that's in response to President Lyndon B. Johnson's Great Society policies from the 60s, in order to avoid the fact that it was Trump who started sending out checks during the pandemic, and the unemployment rate under Biden is almost at an all-time record low. When Vivek said he believes 45, maybe 47 was the best president of the 21st century, Trump responded with, "This answer gave Vivek Ramaswamy a big win in the debate because of a thing called truth. Thank you, Vivek." You know that if Vivek got too popular and Trump ever felt threatened, he would destroy him by pointing out his differences. Vivek is brown and Hindu. So not that he's trying to be Trump 2.0 or the next Trump, but everything is transactional with Vivek. He's a con man. If something doesn't benefit him or there's no return on his investment, he will sell everything that he's asking potential voters and his supporters to buy. This applies to his truths too. Number 6, parents determine the education of their children. That's almost never been the case. Parents couldn't even help their kids with homework during the heaviest part of the pandemic. Number 7, the nuclear family is the greatest governance known to mankind. Ron DeSantis, who didn't raise his hand during the debate when the panel was asked if they would support Trump if he is convicted of his crimes until Ramaswamy did so, boldly, I might add, has made it possible for one parent to determine what other parents, caregivers, students, and kids can learn or not learn in Florida. Tennessee and Texas are similar. While I'm talking about other Republican presidential hopefuls, let's go over the minorities. U.S. Senator Tim Scott out of South Carolina admits that he was victimized by racism, but he has to pretend like America isn't systemically racist in order to stay in the party. He acts like his success is proof of that, yet was called all manner of N-words when he opposed Florida's curriculum, which says that enslaved black people in the U.S. benefited from skills gained while in chains, after dropping AP African American history too. Just because you overcome obstacles to get where you are doesn't mean they weren't there in the first place. Former governor of South Carolina, Nimrata Haley, who I think won the debate, not that this means anything, has to pretend like she hasn't benefited from calling herself Nikki and being a lighter skinned Indian American. She made sure that the Confederate flags in South Carolina no longer fly, but is the flag or the people who wave it racist? To her, no. Heritage, tradition of racist rants aimed at her on Facebook once the stars and bars came down. In the grand old party, you claim that racism won't affect you as a minority or else become the subject of racism. That's how this works. This is a reality that Vivek Ramaswamy knows, which is why he'll act like racism really isn't a thing in America, except for on the left. He almost has to choose. Which is it? Is something not a problem or just a problem on the other side of the aisle? By no means am I saying any of this is exclusive to conservatives. It's a feature on the left, but it comes standard on the right. This isn't truth, it's political ideology, partisanship, pandering to aggrieved white males. If Vivek were being truthful, he would just say that. I expect him to leave Central Ohio for Washington, D.C. within the next 8 years. For now, he'll live in the Columbus area, which overwhelmingly rejected Trump in 2016 and 2020, so did Cincinnati, where he doesn't appear to be a registered Republican and hasn't voted as much as you would think. He's out here freestyling to a susceptible base, Liberals fall for a lot of nonsense, but not this. I'm not saying that Vivek isn't really a repub or a conservative or on the right, but I am saying that you shouldn't believe what he is saying because I don't think he is. And that includes his 10 truths. Oh yeah, number 8, capitalism lifts people up from poverty. So many people can't afford rent right now or afford groceries. And please go and read about how Vivek got rich at biotech. Number 9, there are 3 branches of the US government, not 4. What? What is he even talking about? Even in this opinion piece from the New York Post, he only uses 4 sentences to describe civil service rules and protections. It's pointless. If the good Lord gives both Vivek and I 40 more years of life, because of our respective ages, proximity, skin color, and differing views and opinions, he will be one politician that I will pay attention to for a while. I don't buy who he says he is. Neither do those around me. Now we have this. Before he reaches public office, maybe even the Oval Office, God willing, I'll be here to debunk his lies and false claims then. We'll see him on the trail. We're gonna be all right.
I say my name's Vivek. It rhymes with cake. It ain't about thee. It isn't about me. It is about thee. The United States is about liberty. So Fox and friends, join us on the trail. We'll have some fun. I'll see you out the trail.